Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining. My name is Yao, and I'm the Connecticut Land Conservation Council's Director of Grants and Programs. Welcome to CLCC's January Grant Webinar Series. Last week, we kicked off our series with our Land Capital Grants Program and Connecticut Conservation Partnership Program. We began this week with a discussion of our transaction assistance grants, and today we will end our webinar series with the Climate Smart Land Stewardship Grant Program. In the following slides, I will give a brief recap of our previous sessions. So in our first session, we discussed the Land Capital Grant Program, which provides grants for land and conservation easement acquisitions. Eligible applicants include CLCC members. Eligible projects must be located within Connecticut, although we may consider multi-state projects as long as the project is predominantly in Connecticut. Our projects must entail permanent protection of the land and must close within 12 months or less of the grant award notification. Our minimum award size is $50,000. Our maximum is $500,000 or 30% of the appraised property value, whichever is lesser. Applications are by invitation only, and applications are due throughout the calendar year, beginning March 1st. In our second session, we discussed the Connecticut Conservation Partnership Program, which provides funding for the purchase of conservation easements to be held by NRCS or by an eligible entity. Eligible applicants are CT Land Trust and landowners and the landowners they are working with. Eligible projects must take place on non-industrial private forest, watershed, and agricultural lands. Applicants have the option to choose between two types of easements with this program, a U.S. held easement or an entity held easement. A U.S. held easement is an easement that is held by NRCS, while an entity held easement is an easement held by an eligible entity, in this case, a land trust. Award sizes for this program are determined by the easement option an applicant chooses, the easement's level of restriction, and the easement's appraised value. In our third session, we discussed the Transaction Assistance Grant Program, which provides grants to land trusts for transaction-related project costs, which may include appraisals, surveys, title work, and environmental assessments. Eligible applicants for this program are CLCC members that will hold a conservation interest in the project, either by holding a conservation easement or acquiring the property in fee. And projects can be a purchase, bargain sale, or donation of any conservation easement or fee property. Applicants can receive up to $20,000 in funding in a given calendar year. Applications are accepted monthly, and expenses may not be incurred before the monthly submission deadline. So who are we? CLCC is the umbrella organization for the state's land conservation community. Our mission is to elevate and strengthen land conservation in Connecticut. Our work includes providing technical and financial support to land trusts, convening the land conservation community through networking and collaborative programs, advocating on behalf of the conservation community, and providing land trusts with the tools to further their impact within and outside their communities. For this portion of the presentation, I will turn this over to my colleague, Ricky, to introduce himself and lead us in a presentation of this Climate Smart Land Stewardship Grant Program. Over to you, Ricky.
Thank you, Yao. My name is Ricky Bentley. I am the Climate Smart Stewardship Coordinator. I am in charge of overseeing and administering the Climate Smart Land Stewardship Grant Program. In this presentation, I'll give an overview of the program, explain a little bit what the term Climate Smart means, describe our program goals, describe who's eligible and what eligible expenses there are, what the application process might be like, board process, and then we'll open it up for question and answer. All right, so the funding for this program was paid for by the Climate Smart Farming, Agriculture, and Forestry Grant, which was awarded by the Connecticut Department of Agriculture. We were one of, I believe, six or seven re-grant partners that were awarded funding through this grant program. we were the only organization that was regranting funds directly to conservation purposes rather than agricultural. Um, and so we were awarded we're regranting $500,000 directly to Connecticut land trusts and conservation organizations for the planning and implementation of climate smart stewardship practices. So just a little background on the term climate smart. It's a relatively new term and it's evolving. Um, the matter is a lot of stewardship that is being done, has been done, likely already falls under the umbrella of what climate smart is. The idea of climate smart is it is stewardship for climate change, various stewardship activities that will fall into one or multiple of the following buckets. The first being climate change mitigation. This is the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions or the increased removal of greenhouse gas emissions from the atmosphere, often through the biggest being plants. Yeah, just green stuff. Make as much green stuff grow as possible. The next is building climate resilience in our landscapes. So this is helping our lands to adapt and recover from the effects and impacts of climate change, which leads into climate adaptation. And this is taking actions to prepare and adjust to the impacts of climate change. This is like some of the impacts that we are all seeing, extreme weather events, increased precipitation, increased drought, um, rising sea levels for our coastal communities, altered growing seasons. We're seeing much longer growing seasons than we have previously, as well as increased exposure to pests and pathogens. Right now, we're seeing that in our beech tree population in the Northeast region. So all of these is we're trying to adapt our landscapes to be well adjusted to what the future climate projections are. So the goals of our program are to increase the capacity of Connecticut land trusts to manage their lands using these climate smart stewardship practices. We are using NRCS's list of climate smart activities as the foundation for our program. Um, we are hoping that this will increase the number of acres that are managed with the climate change in mind and using these climate smart practices, as well as kind of having a ripple effect and encouraging the future use of climate smart practices among other land trusts as well as other private landowners. All of this to say that we hope this will elevate the role of our conserved lands in the state as a nature-based solution. Um, you know, the land conservation community safeguards more than 200,000 acres in the state, and around 30% of that, maybe a bit more, is actively managed. And so we're hoping to increase that a little bit, as well as inform the management of those lands. So climate smart grant eligibility, who's eligible? Applicants must be a member with CLCC, so they must be a 501(c) nonprofit. Organization must hold conservation interests, either fee-owned properties or hold conservation easements in the state, um, and have a primary mission that is have a primary mission of conserving land and stewarding land in perpetuity. Also identify themselves as a land trust. Um, Projects must be located within Connecticut, and they must be located on land that's either owned in fee by the applicant or on land with a conservation easement held by the applicant that is open to the public. Um, so there's two tiers. We have planning grants up to $8,000. These are for the early stages of planning for climate smart activities, funding background research and plan development. This has most commonly looked like forest stewardship plans, but has taken other forms as well. We have had organizations apply for funding to have a pollinator meadow plan developed or getting a wildlife habitat plan developed. Um, Forest management plans just happen to be the most common, but there are other plans that would fall under this category. Um, our next tier, our other tier, is implementation grants. This is up to $50,000. Um, with this, we're looking for well-planned, shovel-ready projects that have a demonstrated commitment and impact for climate adaptation, mitigation, resilience. And this can look a couple different ways. We also designed this program to dovetail off of other funding, especially NRCS. So there have been a few organizations that have applied that already have a NRCS equip grant in the works, or that is already open, and that the CLCC grant can come in to fill the gap between what NRCS will not cover, as well as be able to give some money up front. Um, so with this, some eligible expenses. Um, oh, you can go back to, yeah, sorry. Um, so eligible expenses include um, contractor and consultant costs for either planning or implementation, material costs, equipment, that could be equipment purchases or rentals. Um, and but it can't go towards stuff like administrative overhead costs or staff time. Um, we do want to see those things as a project match just to see the total project cost, but they cannot be an eligible expense under this program. Our upcoming deadlines. So we have a deadline February 1st, which is this Saturday. Uh, and then our final deadline will be May 1st. At this time, we are looking at avenues to continue this program beyond this, and find other avenues of funding this type of stewardship work in the state. But nothing has been set in stone yet. So to be determined and announced. A few examples of climate smart projects that we have funded or heard about. So forest stand improvement is a big one. This has included a project that was uh, implementing several patch cuts in a single age forest to increase species diversity and as well as improve habitat quality. It can also look like thinning, some refined selection of various trees to improve the forest stand quality. We've also seen agricultural projects that are doing activities such as cover cropping or having a vegetative strip to help with erosion. We've had quite a few projects that were interested in pollinator meadow development or early successional habitat restoration, as well as riparian buffer improvement. And it's important to say all of these projects have incorporated some element of invasive species treatment. That is the most common activity across the board. I think that's something that all land trusts can relate to. Invasive species are a pervasive problem. Um, but invasive species treatment in and of itself is not a climate smart activity, but it is a supporting activity. So all of these projects, in order to be successful, need to do some invasive treatment. But just doing the invasive treatment isn't enough. You have to then go in and either, be doing forest stand improvement or be adding, native trees and shrubs, or pollinator meadow, something that is, additionally changing that preserved land. So finally, an important component of this program is technical assistance and direct support. That's a big part of my role. Um, I'm available to answer questions and give guidance about our program, how to incorporate climate smart practices, what might be a good fit for your specific site. I'm available to come out and do site visits, provide insight about our program, as well as connect you with other projects, as well as program partners. We are partnering with deep service foresters on this program. Service forestry is a wonderful resource available in the state. Service foresters will come out to any private property once a year for free, and they will give you a qualitative report. They'll do a site walk with you. They'll ask you about your management goals, and this is a great place to start to help inform your process. But we also have some project partners that are work in soil health or agricultural, as well as ecology. And so we can help connect you to um, experts as well as connect you with potential service providers. And then finally, I'm also available to help with reviewing existing plans as well as application materials. This program was designed to be approachable, and the application process, especially that we know NRCS and other government grants can be a bureaucratic process to apply to and can be intimidating, as well as just inundating. There can be a lot of work involved. And so our application process is meant to be pretty straightforward, pretty concise, but again, in my role, I'm happy to talk through application materials with you as well as just answer any questions that arise. Yeah, so if folks have any questions now, I'm happy to answer to the best of my ability.